Often when I try to describe the whole German car idea to people in the United States, it's easiest to say the engineer who works on these cars knows when he goes to work in the morning that the car he is working on will undoubtedly be driven absolutely as fast as it will go for the entire duration of a tank of gas. Something that Americans just simply can't imagine. As Americans, we have difficulty imagining cars that would even survive that kind of treatment. And yet, that's just a basic given with a Porsche.
The passion is obviously very high, and it's no secret that everybody at Porsche is absolutely Porsche-minded and very enthusiastic about designing sports cars.
He tells me he works since 26 years for Porsche. As one of the old specialists, he knows all and he sees all. He's looking for the rough areas here and you have a better feeling with the white one in the hand.
It's not a huge place. It's not thousands and thousands of workers. It's a very nice, compact company where an awful lot of people know each other. And it's very nice to think about cars that you and I can buy coming out of that atmosphere.
You know, we think about craftsmanship dying these days and everything going to automation, and that's kind of a sad state, you know, for us, you know, because in racing we really appreciate the fact and the amount of work it takes and the hands-on kind of thing.
And it was so different going to watch the factory, the guys building the cars at Porsche in their nice long coats, and you know, these guys are doctors, and you know, they can go back home and when they talk to their friends and say, yes, I work for Porsche.
I felt after the first time of being at Weissach, if I'm really good in my life when I die, that's where I'm going to end up.
The design philosophy is, as we would call it in German, Formsprache. And Formsprache, translated in English, means form language.
To me, there's nothing more exciting than something that is truly simple, but not boring. I mean, that's what comedy is. When I do a joke, it should be very simple. But there has to be so much packed into that little space, you know, that it makes you laugh. A lot of comedy is about density of thought. And Porsches have great density of thought. I mean, in the size of that car, there is more thought in that little car about how to get everything in there and how to make it work in this particular way than in cars, than in 10 cars 3 times the size, you know?
The steering wheel is connected to the wheels and not just out there somewhere. And the shifter is perfectly aligned and in sync with the engine. And every single detail is just perfect. Today we call that ergonomics. And back then we just thought, well, gee, that's pretty good. They put it where it's supposed to be.
You can go and sit in a 1967 911, or you can go sit in a 1995 twin turbo, and it feels familiar. And there's no other car company that you can do that with.
The Porsche shape, the 911 shape, has lasted over 30 years. If you put 100 cars in a line and said, pick out the Porsche, you would be able to go instantly to that Porsche.
In the case of a 911, there's a very special key secret, and that is, it's not only the relationship of the whole body to the wheels, it's the relationship of the cockpit to the wheels. The cockpit is narrower than the body is narrower than the wheels itself.
It's like the closest you could get to driving in a Bullet. It even looks like one.
It's a classic.
It's basically an evolution. So we went back in time to the 356, then the first 911, and looked at those cars and how they developed into the later models of the 911. We basically kept the elements that we liked, and we changed the elements that we felt were not in keeping with the original philosophy.
With the Carrera 4S, we went one stage further, and we've really accentuated the difference between the front and rear track. And we've given it very wide rear fenders, very wide rear track. And this is what creates these very muscular looking reflections on the side of the car.
I work since 1980 by Porsche. I am 42 years old, and I'm development engineer, and I drive often these cars. It's a very funny job and I like it to do. Every people pay for this job and I get money for this job. Okay, so I think we can start now and we will ride here. We're sitting now in a Carrera 4S, and you see in the 4S the handling is very good. I have no problems to drive this car so fast.
We're at Willow Springs driving around the Carrera 4. The advantage of the four-wheel drive, the all-wheel drive system, obviously in the wet, it's going to put the traction down better in the wet because you're using all four tires to accelerate with. The reason it's more stable under just high, straight speed is that the viscous coupling, as the car goes faster, realizes that transfers more of the power to the front wheels, giving it more of a stable situation.
I'm going 120 miles an hour. I take both hands off the wheel, relax, full throttle, not worried about. Now we're at 130. I wouldn't recommend this for anybody at home, but there's so much confidence Porsche builds in the car that it really gives you the feedback that you want. When I come off the corner, I'm full throttle sliding right now at 100 miles an hour.
We need to go over here at kind of maximum height.
On this shoot that we were just on, the driver was a great professional driver that we worked with a lot, and I asked him to, he just wanted the attitude of the car to just be slightly sliding, not a big oversteer, not a big deal, but we wanted that aggressive sliding shot from overhead. Well, first run, nothing happened. Second run, nothing happened. Every time building up the speed. And finally I said, well, you know, if we get into more of a rally style here and flick it into the corner and drive hard on the accelerator, you'll start to slide it. Here's a professional driver. I'm asking him to slide the car, and it's almost impossible to slide it. With the four-wheel drive, the width of the wheels and tires, the suspension setup, all of that is just making an incredible handling car, and you really have to work at it to push it beyond that limit.
You can't imagine the difference between the traditional sports car as exemplified by the English Jaguars, MGs, Triumphs, Austin Healey's, and Porsche. The quickest way to see the difference was to cross a railroad track. We would work until 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning tuning our racing cars. We'd take the cars and go out and run them around the country roads at 3 in the morning just to, number one, see if they were running properly, number two, just for the hell of it. And you'd hit a railway crossing in an Austin Healey, a Triumph, an MG, and it would mean slamming on the brakes, slowing down, changing gear, and then creeping across the tracks. And with a Porsche, you didn't lift. You just went brum.
This guy looked for a little mistake on a finished car, and he can change it. We only have a single person who can do it.
How long has he been doing this?
Oh, just a moment. Wie lange machen Sie das schon, wollen die wissen?
Ich?
Ja.
36 Jahre.
Ja. He has a special profession, but it's not for a long time. 36 years.
You know, some cars are only fun when you're going fast. You go, look how fast I'm going. Porsche, you're going 30, but you're feeling things through the suspension, through the steering wheel, through the engine. You're being entertained at 30 miles an hour, as well as 130.
2 words, let's put it this way. One, sky-hooked, and the other would be ground-hooked. Now, if you develop a car with a philosophy that is sky-hooked, you always try to insulate the driver and the passenger from everything that's happening around you. We follow a different philosophy. we believe we should develop our cars in a way that I would describe as being ground hooked.